Well, 2022 is the year of economic recovery for Indonesia. Though, of course, it met its challenges, which included inflation and price hikes or hikes within the Bank Indonesia's benchmark prices or rates. But despite everything else, the country managed to maintain a stable economic growth. Now, 2022 also featured a milestone for Indonesia, where the country successfully held the G20 summit in Bali. A number of heads of states had all praised Indonesia in hosting the event. Now, let's take a look back at the economic events both in Indonesia and around the world. I'm Kai Soria. Welcome to see today's 2022 in 30 minutes economic milestone. Now, the overall performance of the Indonesian economy remains strong amid a slowdown in the global economy and rising domestic inflation. This had been underlined by economic growth in the third quarter of 2022 that reached 5.72 or 5.72% year on year. Now, this figure was higher than the 5.45% year-on-year growth recorded in the previous quarter. The robust economy was supported by better domestic demand and persistently high exports. The stronger national economy was also reflected in impressive performances in several business fields and related areas. The Indonesian Finance Ministry expects to see continuously strong economic growth aided by better domestic demand in line with both rising mobility and the finalization of national strategic programs. Meanwhile, Indonesian inflationary pressures in November 2022 was a result of inflation in the previous months. Now, inflation in November 2022 was recorded at 5.42% year on year. The figure was lower compared to the 5.71% in October 2022. Indonesian inflation data from Statistics Indonesia indicate that inflation in November 2022 was a modest 0.09%, though was higher from the previous month that saw 0.11% deflation. The positive development in CPI inflation was made possible by synergy of policies from the central and regional governments, Bank Indonesia, as well as other strategic partners throughout the central and regional inflation control teams. It also involved the involvement of the National Food Inflation Control, which managed to lower inflation and mitigate impacts from the hike in fuel prices. And elsewhere, Bank Indonesia has raised its 7-day reverse repo rate as many as 4 times for a total of 175 basis points in its last 4 Board of Governors meeting. Bank Indonesia Governor Peri Warjio said that the rate hikes were a front-loaded, preemptive and forward-looking step to lower estimated inflation that currently remain high. The steps would also allow core inflation to return to the range of 3 plus or minus 1% earlier than estimated in the first half of 2023. Now, rate hikes could support policies to stabilize the rupiah's exchange rate and assure that the currency remains in line with its fundamentals against a stronger U.S. dollar and mounting uncertainties in the global market amid greater demand in the currently robust domestic economy.
Rapat Dewan Gubernur Bank Indonesia pada tanggal 16 dan 17 November 2022 memutuskan untuk menaikkan BI 7-day reverse repo rate sebesar 50 basis point menjadi 5,25%, suku bunga deposit facility naik sebesar 50 basis point menjadi 4,5%, dan suku bunga lending facility naik sebesar 50 basis point menjadi 6%. Keputusan kenaikan suku bunga tersebut sebagai langkah lanjutan secara front-loaded, preemptive, dan forward-looking untuk menurunkan ekspektasi inflasi yang saat ini masih tinggi dan memastikan inflasi inti ke depan kembali ke dalam sasaran 3 plus minus 1% lebih awal, yaitu pada paruh pertama 2023.
Now, Indonesian President Joko Widodo also announced his 2023 state budget spending plan last August, along with predictions for where the economy is heading to in the coming year. With uncertainty across all major economies in the world, we'll take a look at what the future has in store for Indonesia's economy and whether the nation should be anxious or optimistic.
The global economy in 2022 was rather tumultuous, to say the least. Major global events such as the Russia-Ukraine war has devastated worldwide food and energy security during a time where most countries are still reeling from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Inflation is on the rise, and so are prices of some essential commodities, such as gasoline. Remarkably, despite all the turmoil, Indonesia has managed to stay relatively safe this past year. The economy grew 5.72% in the third quarter of 2022, and every other metric from household spending to exports to investment has grown a healthy amount year on year. But what does the future hold for Indonesia's economy? Will 2023 have more growth in store for the archipelago, or should we brace for a downturn?
Kalau yang tadi hilirisasi tadi berhasil, ya ekspornya pasti kita akan naik, dan kita tahu sudah 31 bulan neraca perdagangan kita selalu surplus, nggak pernah sebelum-sebelumnya, tapi ini sudah 31 bulan. Kemudian yang keempat, investasi, peningkatan investasi, momentum, trust, kepercayaan dunia kepada Indonesia ini harus betul-betul kita manfaatkan untuk menarik investasi masuk, capital inflow sebanyak-banyaknya, sehingga memperkuat fundamental kita.
Indonesia economic growth for 2023 is expected to be at a healthy 5.3%.
Negeri Pancasila Merdeka!
President Jokowi emphasized the need to expand production to open up more job opportunities to maintain this growth. With a relatively healthy growth over the past year in 2022, and as current predictions see the next year continuing the trend, Indonesians may breathe a sigh of relief. Inflation is predicted to be capped at a modest 3.3%. Nonetheless, this metric will depend heavily on the ever-evolving global food and energy security situation and its subsequent impact on household spending. Relative to the predicted global inflation rate of 6.22%, Indonesia's predicted 2023 inflation rate seems much tamer. The strength of the rupiah in 2022 leaves much to be desired, as the currency hit its lowest valuation since April 2020 in around October this year at 15,540 rupiah per dollar. The exchange rate prediction for 2023 puts the rupiah at around 14,750 to 14,800 per dollar, as the global markets continue to be unpredictable. The energy sector has also been a major source of unpredictability in the past year, with the war in Ukraine affecting the price of fuel around the world. The price for Indonesian crude oil is expected to hover around $90 per barrel, with a predicted 660,000 barrels per day ready to sell. President Joko Widodo and the Indonesian government as a whole appear to be optimistic, citing the substantial progress that has already been made in recovering the economy post-pandemic. And while the economy is rarely so predictable, the upcoming year for Indonesia seems to be, at least for now, something to look forward to. Arya Siddhartha and Reza Anindita for See Today.
And See Today's 2022 30 Minutes economic milestone will return after a quick break. And after the break, we'll wrap up with the G20 summit. Stay with us.